Peace, 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 and top of the AM. International Blast, man. Real Spitters TV, Real Spitters Radio, RealSpitters.com. You already know what it is. It's dialogue. Dig, right? There's a lot of theories about everything, personally. However, right now what I'm going to talk about is this. The history of the world has been theorized many different ways. Now, let's take into consideration one fact that becomes absolutely clear. When you start with the history of the world from the Bible perspective, from a biblical perspective, you see that in the beginning, the world was completely melanated. Melanated people roamed the firmament. The world was completely melanated. Then at some point, something happened. Along came a people that had no melanoma whatsoever. Now the question is, where did these people come from? With the Neanderthal DNA. Where did these people come from? That's the question. Now, the term European is slightly askew because there's a misinterpretation there. There's a queen known as Europa, Queen Europa, where they took her name and gave it to her people, who became so-called Europeans, right? Which tells you Europeans are not Caucasians. Caucasians specifically comes from Caucasus Mountains. Now, how they got there, we don't know. But we do know they're the only race that has Neanderthal DNA. They're the only race that has melanoma. Now, in one biblical story, they have this thing where they say these twins was going to bear two nations that will be at war with each other. Now, the vitiligo has a lot to do with pigment. It has a lot to do with the pigment of a person. But there's still melatonin there. There's still melanin there. What we have is two distinct differences in people. Melanoma is the lack of melatonin or melanin, whatever you want to call it. So, when do we start taking into account that we should stop having any dealings with a people or a race or a nation who despises us to the point of murdering us. We should have nothing at all to do with. They mean us no good. Any race, nation, whatsoever that has that much hate for us, we should have no dealings with. Bottom line. So at what point do we start looking to help ourselves? Another thing that's absolutely weird to me is the fact that you do your best to work with others, only to have others still step on you? When do you look towards each other? Another thing I can't get in my head specifically is when you read the history, when you read religious texts, and they tell you about these brothers, Shem and Arphax and the rest of them, all melanated people, what do you miss in the fact that we are all cousins? Brown, black, yellow. We are all cousins. Because if you go by scripture, they said these were all brothers, which makes us one nation of cousins, brothers, sisters, completely. Why are we constantly bickering amongst each other for no possible reason at all, except that there's someone in the background pulling the strings? When do you wake up and begin to think for yourself, is the question. At what point do you wake up and begin to think for yourself? Then there's also, when I look at what was the reason for our brothers and sisters to get involved in the legal system, law, politics, whatever. What was the purpose of you getting involved with that? What was your reasoning? And when did your reasoning or your motives change? Are you still working for the same cause that you specifically got involved for? And I'm not talking about the guys, you know, the melanated guys that grew up in neighborhoods where they was picked on, bullied, and now you get a sense of authority and you want to get back at those that did you a certain way. That's corny too. But that's what a lot of you clowns did. I'm not talking about specifically those clowns, because those clowns knew exactly what they was doing when they got involved. I'm talking about the ones who went in with a purpose of change for their brothers, sisters, cousins, nation, whatever, and then got in and forgot what their purpose was, because now you're working under a code that was designed to keep you beneath them, yet you're working for the same operatives and doing their bidding. How do you look at yourself in the mirror every day? I'm wondering at what point are people going to start wanting to have the conversations that really mean something than frivolous, non-purposeful conversations. Jay-Z did this, Jay-Z did that, Jail is this, that's whack. That's why we're in the condition we're in. It's either fear, which I believe it's perfectly just that, fear. Because if it wasn't fear, then why are you constantly running through your own neighborhoods killing each other as opposed to the person that's actually trying to kill you? And tell you in your face they don't like you. I don't get it. This has nothing to do with racism or anything. It has to do with a quality of life that nobody respects when it comes to melanated people. When are we, as a nation, going to sit down at the table of brotherhood and have this conversation about what are we going to do for the melanated nation across the globe? We are all cousins, whether you want to accept it or not. Peace.